Uh, I'm John O'Grady, President of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. Welcome to Commissioners Conversation. We started this online series back in April to provide our residents with direct information about the pandemic, what assistance is available, safety tips, and some other useful information. Since then, the virus has done a tremendous amount of damage in all parts of our community. The state's first coronavirus case was discovered in Ohio on March 9th. Now we have more than 130, almost 133,000 cases, over 4,300 deaths statewide. Franklin County continues to have the highest number of cases and the second highest number of deaths in the state. We have over almost 20, we have 23,000, almost 23,800 cases, and 572 of our neighbors have died of this disease as of 2 p.m. Today. Across the nation, more than 191,000 Americans have died. Back in March, we had one of the those first few cases, and we watched the governor on TV each day, and it was a scary time. Nobody knew what to expect, and one of the most disruptive things was that the schools had closed down to in-person instruction altogether. Some of the challenges that we dealt with back then were kids at home needed an adult at home. Many families rely on school for some of their kids' meals each day. Teachers at the time weren't prepared with online lesson plans, and many students that didn't at the time generally have access to a computer or especially internet in their homes. Thankfully, some of that has changed. So it was a unique challenge back at the time for our schools and our students. But now that there's been a summer to prepare for coming school or the school year that was to come, today we're going to talk to two of our community school leaders about how the new year is going so far and what families can expect going forward. And as always, at this point, I want to remind you to type your questions for our two guests into the comments section on Facebook Live, and we'll answer as many of them as we can as we go along. With me today are Dr. Talisa Dixon, the Superintendent of Columbus City Schools, and Melvin Brown, who is the Superintendent of Reynoldsburg City Schools. So let me start by asking a few questions as we allow our guests to prepare their questions for Facebook Live. Dr. Dixon, let's start with you. Have you ever experienced anything at all like the shutdown of in-person schooling and the transition to virtual learning that we saw back in March?
Absolutely not. This is the first time, and I keep saying I am going to write about this journey. And I think that's the piece that's so unique about it, that none of us has gone through this before, and we having to lean on each other to make sure that we get through this. So again, I think if we've used that term unprecedented times so much, but I think now people are getting to what they believe is some sense of normalcy, but it is anything but that, especially in these K through 12 spaces.
Well, there's no question. So I understand that your food service team immediately started providing meals for students that they could pick up from their schools. And even though the schools were closed, how has all that gone?
But gosh, yesterday we had our first pickup for this school year. We expanded from 15 sites to 44 sites throughout the district. If many people can remember, last year I moved the district into a regional approach. So we have 6 regions. So we used a heat map to see where exactly are our kids living so that we could put those food sites in their neighborhoods where they live rather than having them go to their schools, since we have open enrollment. And yesterday I was at South High School, and the number of families that were coming to pick up food was a little overwhelming. It reminded me of the need many of our families have, and then being so thankful that we were able to provide this support for our families.
Well, and I'm sure you know, and I know Mr. Brown knows from the involvement that he's had with our poverty steering committee that as a county commissioner, this is something that's of serious interest to us. Not only, how are kids being fed, but how are parents dealing with, kids when they have to be at home, parents that need childcare so that they can get to work. So these are all issues that we as county commissioners are very much interested in. Before I move to Mr. Brown, I want to remind folks that the city of Columbus keeps a list of many of the different programs for offering help with meals. And you can see more about it at www.columbus.gov/recreation and parks/programs/free meals /meal programs. We'll post that on the Facebook Live. So if you're following along on Facebook, that'll be posted on there. But there is a website that you can go to track where you can find some of this information about meal programs. So Superintendent Brown, what about you? What was the spring like for the students and staff at Reynoldsburg?
Unprecedented, no question about that. None of us have ever experienced anything like this, so we've had to adjust. We kind of had a little bit of foresight in seeing that we kind of anticipated something happening. So about 2 to 3 weeks prior to that, we began making some plans for a potential school shutdown, which would include our food program. We had that up and ready to go on the very first Monday. Once school closed, we closed on the 13th, which was a Friday, I believe it was. And that following Monday, our food service program was available to our families to pick up a week's worth of meals throughout the entire summer. And that has been nonstop since then. We've continued that. Being that we've been at home, we've learned a whole lot of lessons from the spring about what this needs to look like now. We're currently completely virtual. And we will be shifting to our hybrid model on the 21st of September. And we will play things out as they go. We're learning a ton of information about how education can evolve in this space.
So that was one of the points I was going to get to is, we're always searching for, are there silver linings to this pandemic? And I guess in some ways, maybe the fact that school had to close in the spring might have been a bit of a silver lining in that now you've had the entire summer to prepare for this school year. What does that look like now for both of you? How has that helped? As you are now marching into this school year. Dr. Brown will start, or I'm sorry, Superintendent Brown will start with you.
We learned tons of lessons from the spring. I think we did the spring fairly well, but we learned a lot. And I think what's been deployed since we've been back this school year, our teachers are doing some amazing things in classrooms and working with kids online. And no, it's not the same as being in person. That's absolutely what all of us want to be able to do. But given our circumstances, we've had to evolve, and they're doing a phenomenal job of interacting with kids, not only academically, but making sure they're socially and emotionally fit and ready to go. They're getting support in that regard, counseling and those types of things. And hopefully by the time we hit the ground on September 21st, it'll be just as seamless as possible. We've set up our schedules in a manner that if in fact we have to shift back again to completely virtual, that's going to be seamless to our schedules and to our entire academic program.
Yeah.
Dr. Dixon?
Yeah, and for us, I think we were not a one-to-one district. So that was key. So when the governor shut the schools down, we had 3 weeks to figure out not only how do we get to those online lessons and have some type of continuity of learning, but how do we get devices in the hands of 50,000 students? And what we had to do was borrow computers from our schools and loan those out to our parents. So that was one challenge. And the second challenge for us were hotspots. So we were given devices and then we learned, oh my gosh, families did not have access to internet, which was a shock to many of us. You think you live in these big cities and you think that's something that people automatically have, and they didn't. So then there was that issue. So, but our teachers, as Dr. Brown has stated, were absolutely amazing. They, they work with our students, try to keep a common schedule, right? And that was part of it. Our students had lost touch. They spend so much time with us, and they needed us and we needed them. But our teachers, I think, learned a lot and were able to put together some creative lessons and learn from our students. And that went into summer school as well. I mean, our summer school program was cut short. We had to move to an online summer academy. And again, our students were not able to go outside and do a lot of physical activity as we wanted them to. But we had 300 amazing teachers in summer school that were working together to put some online lessons and platforms together. And we were able to utilize those platforms this fall. So we've learned a lot and we're still learning. And we still have to remind ourselves that this global pandemic is still happening. And that we won't go back to being normal. We know that. And I think that's a lesson that all school districts have learned. This is the silver lining for this is one, we're going to rely on technology and we're going to use technology to leverage education and use that. Everyone is using it. So many kids are tethered to their phones. How can we use this technology to expand their learning opportunities? And second, I think that it challenged us to be more creative of how we get in touch with our kids. You know, many kids did not go to school. For example, for us in Columbus City Schools, we may have had a larger number of dropouts because students didn't feel connected to their teacher or someone in the school. Now I can connect with you via this device and I don't ever have to be in your presence physically, you know? So I think it's going to give us the opportunity to win back some students so that they can get their high school education and be productive citizens in a very different way. So it's going to allow us to reimagine education. I can reach out to Reynoldsburg and say, hey, I may need to utilize this platform or this, and there are no walls anymore. And I think for me, and I think for our other partners, that is absolutely wonderful to be able to move to that approach because of this.
That's great. So let me first, I want to come back to this, but let me real quick remind our viewers, the folks that are paying attention to us, to make sure you go ahead and submit your questions via Facebook Live in the comment section. Both Superintendent Brown and Dr. Dixon. So that's I want to discuss real briefly. I want to veer back off this or back to this topic and make sure that our viewers and listeners are understanding this. So school districts, Columbus City Schools, and I'm certain in Reynoldsburg as well, distributing, whether it's Chromebooks or iPads or whatever, to make sure that these students can study remotely is a great thing. But what I want to make sure that parents are and folks out there are understanding, when we do this, there has to be kids have to have access. They have to have not only having the device is one thing. Having the ability to access the internet is a completely different situation. There's plenty of places where you have the ability to be able to do that. But if we're assuming that every household has access to the internet, that's just not the case. Kids shouldn't have to run to the library, run to a coffee shop or a restaurant to be able to sit down and do their homework. They should be able to do it from their own home. Every kid should be able to do their homework in their own kitchen, in their own bedroom, or wherever it is in their house that they have have some sort of calm and quiet and privacy to be able to do their homework. Too often there's the assumption that everybody has the internet. They don't. We, the county commissioners, paired with got together with Morrissey, got together with City of Columbus, got together with ESC, Educational Service Center of Central Ohio, easy for me to say, and provided some dollars to be able to help provide for mobile hotspots so that kids would have the ability to have access to be able to do this stuff. But talk about that a little bit, so if you guys want to, each of you, so that we can talk about kids having the ability to be able to study and do their work in a private, safe place.
Yeah, it's so important. When we started in the spring, obviously we were a little behind the 8 ball and caught in a situation where we were trying to react to a situation. We were able to get devices in all of our kids' hands. Then we were able to create mobile hotspots on our buses. We put them in city locations around the city so that people could come somewhat to central locations. And we also expanded the access in range from each of our buildings. So there was more access in that respect. If you were in a neighborhood beside one of your school, you could access internet. This fall is going to be a little bit different in that we partnered with some organizations so that our families who don't have internet connectivity, they now will be able to get that, and if they're through a program in which they could be eligible. I think that's a huge equity issue for all of us to tackle. That is just one of those equity issues, and I think this space that we're in right now has given us an opportunity to look at a whole lot of equity issues that need to be tackled. We talked a lot here about education essentially being the same that it's been for the last 100 years. So I've said very openly, if we come out of this thing and if we revert right back to what it used to look like, shame on us. Yeah. We have an opportunity to do something pretty special and remake what this is supposed to be. We know it has not worked for all kids at all times, and we've been complacent in many respects in education to let those things happen. Now's the time to do something special.
Yeah. Thank you. I echo that, and to add to that, I think there's just common knowledge that, oh wow, you have a device, you click on it, it works, you have access, right? And not only did we realize, oh my gosh, that's not true. We also have 6,000 students in our district that's considered vulnerable youth. So they live in either homeless shelters, foster care systems. So that was a challenge to making sure they had hotspots. And then how do we provide it? So we tried, as Dr. Brown said, okay, what if we set buses? But that didn't work for that population of students. So we need to figure out how do we get them in their hands and in a very safe way for those students and their families. And we've been able to do that with the help of some partners. And I think another silver lining of this, if I can go back to that real quickly, is that partners had to come together, and people are partnered in ways that they've never had to before, because they understand that in order to help our students, we first have to help their families. And then even though we as superintendents, we want the pre-K through 12 learning to continue, I had to go back and say, you know what, it is more important right now that my students feel safe and loved, that they have food, that they have connectivity to their devices, all of these basic needs that I think sometimes we took for granted because we said, okay, kids are going to get up in the morning, they're going to get on the bus and they're going to come to school and they're going to learn. We've had to really change our thought process and say that right now, our field students haven't been with us since March. And right now, that social emotional learning, that care for our students is paramount as we work on these other things. So thank you, Commissioner Grady, for your efforts with saying, you know what, we have to figure out this internet, this connectivity. It should be like a public utility. There's now a sense of urgency that it happens, and you're partnering with organizations to make that happen across the county, not just for the city of Columbus, but for an entire Franklin County. And that's what's needed. And I'm sure that families and partners are going to be appreciative of that work.
We need to take this this situation and use this unfortunate situation, this pandemic, as a time to reflect on this community's ability. I know that there are many of our municipalities in this community have community-wide broadband, but not all of them. There is no reason why a thriving, growing, prosperous community like Central Ohio, like Franklin County, can't have community-wide broadband access. And we need to take this unfortunate situation and take this time to make sure that we are driving at this issue so that in the future, our kids, all of our kids have the ability, all of our families have the ability to have access. We shouldn't have this problem in the future.
And to add to that, if we don't address it, we're going to further have that digital divide within our region, right?
There's
And
no
so
doubt.
Reynoldsburg students could possibly outperform our students and vice versa because they have access to something that our families don't. And to your point earlier, Dr. Brown, that's it. You know, we've been aware of so many disparities and inequities. This is one that we can dig in right now and solve, so that every student in this county has access.
It's so important. Information in itself is a resource, and when we deprive people of those resources, we automatically create that inequity. So as mentioned earlier, it should be a utility that everybody gets access to.
Yeah.
Superintendent Brown, this gets back to all the work that we did with the poverty initiative, the blueprint that we did. While it wasn't named in all of that research that we did, it certainly gets to the issue of housing, and it gets to the issue of transportation and all of the things that we discussed and all of that. Access to the internet, access to information. You know, it's the digital divide is just something that continues to create the same type of problems for families in need. And it's just another one of the issues that creates a problem here. And so we need to do something about it. So we'll, it is something I will definitely be making sure that my staff our economic development staff is having conversations with our communities through the Mid-Ohio Development Exchange and others to see if we can't lead a conversation on this issue going into the future, because somebody needs to do that, and we might as well be the ones to start the conversation. Couple things. We need to move on here. And I do have some more questions, but we did get a question from Jill Patrick Smith. Wants to know if any thought was given to using some of the WOSU channels for educational purposes in this regard. Does anybody know if there was any conversation with WOSU about doing any of this work?
Yes, our team is currently brainstorming an approach to use. Again, is a perfect way to utilize our stations to help not only create content, but provide the content in different mediums. So yes, Columbus City Schools is currently in conversations regarding using that platform.
Mm-hmm. Having those conversations as well. As again, we mentioned earlier, we're building this plane while it's in the air. So there are going to be so many great ideas that come out of this that may not start day one, but they certainly could start day 40. So I'm excited to receive whatever suggestions folks have, and we're certainly brainstorming as much as we possibly can to come up with some new and innovative ways to address this issue.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then I think too, if we add that we're taking this approach as superintendents, is that they're all our kids, right? They're all Franklin County kids.
That's right.
So whatever we can do to provide support for kids, regardless of the school district that they're in, that's what we want to do. Those are schools without walls. We're providing their supports for all of our students.
Absolutely. Well, we have another question coming in, but we're getting some clarity on it. So I will get back to that. In the meantime, let's get back to some of these other topics. So most immediately, Columbus students started their virtual classes on Tuesday of this week. How's it going, Dr. Dixon? And must be lots of new challenges and opportunities. I know you are not headed back to classrooms until the end of October, correct?
Correct. Okay. So our first day was interesting. They were all virtual, and the night before classes started, we had major thunderstorms. So if you imagine what happened the first day, we had 3 buildings with no electricity. So it was a good thing that our kids were working from home. I think for me, a couple things. One, I wanted to log in and visit classrooms that morning, and I could not get my own technology to work in my office. So I was so frustrated that the letter I wrote to the staff is like, I understand, and it's so important that we have patience and grace with each other, because I couldn't even log in. So I decided to just go to a building. We're allowing our teachers, they have the option of teaching from their classrooms or teaching from home. So I went to Southwood Elementary, and it was amazing to see what the teachers were doing with our students. The students were kindergarten students sitting side by side with their parents as their teacher was teaching. The kids were responsive. They were talking about mathematics. I mean, so we had content teaching on the first day, or students were going over their protocols on their morning meetings with their teachers. So that was so good to see, but it was so very different because I'm so used to having clap-ins, you're clapping students, you're celebrating them returning, but that's just not the case for us right now. But opening day went well, and I'm pleased, and we're going to keep working on it. It's not perfect. Again, we say publicly, we want our kids in our school buildings, and that is the best place for that learning to occur. But for us, until we believe that we have some other protocols in place, then we're going to continue remote until end of October.
Good, good. So obviously both of you guys have been working really hard to ensure that all your students have access to the internet and computers to use from home. Where do each of your districts stand with that effort? Does everybody have some sort of a device at the moment, and does everybody have some sort of access, whether it's through hotspots or whatever?
I could probably say if parents who came in to actually check those out, 100% of those parents have devices for each of their kids. So if there are 4 kids in that household, there should be 4 devices. As far as getting internet connectivity, I believe those conversations with the internet provider started on Tuesday with those families who needed access. So that's happening. We still have the enhanced ability to latch onto our own network by our school. So that's still in place. So I think things have gone fairly well. We've been remote our opening day was August 24th, and so far so good. I was able to walk around to some buildings that most of our teachers are teaching from their classrooms. I was able to walk around to most of our buildings and have some conversations. And first couple of days, as we expected, would be a little bumpy, but by Wednesday and Thursday, they kind of had hold of what needed to be done. And all of a sudden you see all these wonderful things starting to happen. And we want to make sure we retain that type of knowledge and that type of experience as we transition into a hybrid, simply because I think those are going to be necessary components of what education actually is as we go forward.
Yeah, yeah. And for Columbus, I had some concerns because, as I stated earlier, we had to utilize some of our own computers that our schools had purchased, and we loaned those out to our families. But then we received this gift through the city of Columbus. They provided us part of their CARES Act dollars, and we were able to purchase 20,000 Chromebooks for our students. So right now, all of our students have access to a device, and they have access to a hotspot. We did, after the first day, we have additional families who have requested hotspots. We've had families to pick up the Chromebook and didn't have an understanding that needed to pick up a hotspot as well. So after the first day, we did learn that some students were not connected because they didn't have the hotspot. So we've had to order some additional hotspots for our families. But again, the goal is that every family that needs a Chromebook will have one, and every family that need a hotspot will be provided for one. And if any family members that are listening now and you don't have that, you can just go to our website, and there's a link there on the family page that you can request, or go to your school, your student school, and request it through their principal so that you can have your hotspot and your Chromebook.
Gotcha. Great. So we got a couple other questions that came in. Angela Abram wants to know if the county will work with the FCC to increase connectivity and broadband as a utility. Our economic development staff will look into this. I don't know that we need to work with the FCC to make that happen, but I know that there is a large portion of the county that already has has a great amount of broadband and connectivity that we just have. We have spots throughout the county that don't have it well enough, have it done well enough. There's a chunk of the city of Columbus that's done. Places, obvious places like New Albany, Dublin, Arlington, Grandview. There's plenty of places that have it. There are plenty of other places that don't. And so we need to identify where there's not enough, where broadband is not finished, not completed, figure out how to make that happen. Our folks they'll have a better handle on this, and we'll look into it. So I thank her for that question. And then got a question from Ashley Steyer. She wants to know if she should re-enroll her children. She has tried to set up an appointment with Central Enrollment, but can't because they have no appointment times. She's struggling with this and is wondering where she should go.
If she would send me an email to superintendent@columbus.k12.oh.us, put her information there, then I'll make sure it gets to our enrollment person.
And so our people will put that on Facebook in the again, but if you could, superintendent, say that again.
Superintendent@columbus.k12.oh.us.
Yeah, so our staff will put that on Facebook. So Ms. Steyer, if you could send an email to Superintendent Dixon, Dr. Dixon, she will help you get where you need to go. All right, so let's see. So Superintendent Brown, what can Reynoldsburg students expect going forward? Are you guys doing fall sports?
Yes, we are. Full boat.
I feel like you guys are in the same. You guys are in the same conference as my kids' school. So not in the same division, thankfully, because I don't know that Hilliard that Davidson wants to tangle with Reynoldsburg and stuff. But, I know you're in the same conference. So
yes, we have a good 6-game scheduled for football and the OCC, and of course we hope to host at least one playoff game after that. Our other sports are off and running and have been very successful. We've had a couple of during the summer, we had a couple of flare-ups where we might have a case here or a case there of COVID that we've had to address in shutting down programs for a week or two. We've overcome that, and teams have continued to have workouts and practices, and so far so good.
How about other easy for me to say, extracurriculars like theater, band, things of that nature?
Marching band is off and running. They've been doing that since day one as well. What band and classroom band and theater and those things are going to look like, those are things we're working out right now. And I still don't have a good grasp of how that's going to look once that we start with our hybrid model.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son's on the drum line, and what they're doing at Hilliard is everybody meets separately. No more than a certain number of kids with one instructor, and so the drum line meets individually, and so it looks completely different than it always has before. And then the way they, and I'm certain you guys do the same thing, and I'm getting ready to come to you, Dr. Dixon, about the same questions. But the way they're doing it is, and it's interesting. At first, there was some controversy over this, but like for the football games, band families only get 2 tickets. The football parents get 4, but the band is more than 2.5 times the size of the football team, which is why that happened. Everybody thought they were favoring the football team over the band, which, if you know anything about Davidson football, they generally get favored over everything else. Is the popular sentiment at the school, which is understandable. The football team's been very successful. But so first home game is tomorrow night. So it'll be the first time the band has performed, because they don't perform at away games.
Right.
And so we'll only get 2 tickets to the game. We have grandparents that want to go, as well as parents, as well as siblings. And so we have to figure out who gets to do what, and how that happens, and going forward and all that good stuff. But everybody's faced with it, and we just have to figure it out, because, it's a different kind of time. And, and they asked about, what about the band, the drumline dinner, because that's a big tradition. Every game, somebody every Friday night, some family's supposed to host the drum line for dinner. And so my son's a senior. So I said, look, I'm more than happy to host the drum line for a dinner outside and everything, but the kids need to know we're going to do it the way Commissioner O'Grady wants to do it. And if they can't handle that, then somebody's going to be upset, because we're going to have folks that are going to be distanced. Kids aren't going to be kids. They're going to be responsible. And, and I said, my son may not want to, told my wife, Pat may not want to have people over because his dad may embarrass, him in front of his friends, but it's going to be the way it's going to be. We're not going to get anybody sick coming to Commissioner O'Grady's house. But,
Right.
but anyway, I'm assuming you guys are doing things quite the same way.
Yeah, we have 2 tickets per family. Actually, each kid, no matter band, cheerleading, football, whatever the case may be, 2 tickets are allotted. We opened with a home game, so we've had a nice little dry run that went really well. We had our inspectors coming from OHSAA who gave us a fairly good report. We have our second home game tomorrow night, which is also senior night, which of course means more people want to come. And so we're putting those pieces in place as well. We beg everybody's patience as we get through this process. We don't want to keep people away, but we also want to make sure we abide by the guidelines that have been established.
Yeah.
Great. Dr. Dixon, how about Columbus City Schools?
Well, because Columbus City Schools, we just resumed our athletic activities a few weeks ago. Many people may have known that our numbers in the city of Columbus, the number of cases look very different from my colleagues in the suburbs. So we had to take some more precautions, and I did not want to jeopardize the safety of our students. So we just recently resumed. We have our first football game next Thursday. So we've decided that we are going to limit our football competition to within the district. So we have 16 high schools with football programs. So we're going to play one another and then have a city league championship. So I'm looking forward to that. I think we play Thursday nights. I think we're gonna play Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, I believe.
Do you know who plays next Thursday?
I don't know. I don't have my schedule in front of me, but we could link it. Yes. So
my nephew used to coach at Lyndon McKinley, so
gotcha.
I'm particularly interested. I'm a fan. I went to a lot of Lyndon McKinley games for 4 or 5 years when he coached there. So.
Oh wow. Well, for many years I was at Brookhaven High School, and so
that's right.
There was no other sports if you were not at Brookhaven.
I played on that field. I played on that field back in the day, about 137 years ago. We played the Sales there.
Yeah, right. So, so we're excited. I know it wasn't a popular decision to stop or to resume late, but we want to make sure our students connect to our adults, and our coaches are mentors to our students too. But, we said to our families and our students, we must do this in a safe manner. We're still working with Columbus Public Health and monitoring the number of cases. And if we see that the number of cases increase and our county changes colors, then we're going to have to stop our sports again. But hopefully people are being responsible. They're washing their hands, they're wearing their mask. And I think it's more of us that follow those guidelines and protect ourselves, that we'll be fine. Yeah, so excited about that.
Yeah, everybody's excited about it. So it's that time of year.
Yes.
We just need to remind everybody and keep reminding people over and over again that all this stuff is great as long as everybody's remaining safe and following guidelines and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So I have a handful of questions here that from viewers that we want to try to get through. Ashley Wilson wants to know how districts work to keep children who choose the virtual academy included and just as much a part of the district as in-person learners.
We have a unique twist to ours. Our teachers are actually going to be doing live streaming with kids in class and on screen. So they're going to be completely connected and be part of what happens on a daily basis in classrooms. So 2 days a week that will happen. And then the other 2 days, they're actually on their own doing online assignments and being able to interact with teachers again on Wednesday. On Wednesdays when we can do small group instruction. So they're going to be completely connected. We're excited about what that's going to look like. And I know we'll be making some changes and tweaks as we go through the process, but I think it's going to be a pretty dynamic opportunity to reimagine what a classroom might be. We know there are numbers of kids whose parents aren't comfortable sending them back to school. And it's our responsibility to be able to provide them with the type of education that everyone else gets. So we're thrilled to be able to get that off the ground. I'll be glad when the 21st gets here, so we know what pitfalls we need to tackle. But so there's some anxiousness there, but I think we're going to be in really good shape for as far as our families are concerned.
That's
Yeah.
great. Dr. Dixon.
Yeah, I think for us is one of those reality checks, right? Can we really provide everything for all students during this time? Even though we're trying our best, we know that in reality we can't. But we're striving to do that. So, for example, we have almost 5,000 students in our digital academy, and these are our parents who stated that they feel better at this point of having just a total online self-paced experience and not having to choose whether they're in virtual or hybrid, and they didn't feel safe. So many of those students, they won't be face-to-face with their teacher. They would be online, self-paced, and we will have staff members, if they need additional support and help, they will be provided that help. So many families are really, I don't think they're as comfortable as we move into day 3. I think families are seeing that they really need to rely on their teachers more so than they thought, and that self-paced could be pretty robust. And so we have, as of today, we've seen about 200 families who have moved back to the virtual platform. And that is when they're they would have some more face-to-face interaction with their teachers, especially when we go back to hybrid. So again, to our families, we're still balancing it. We will make shifts as needed. We want our students to have the best experience, but we want them, the student and the family, to feel safe too. We don't want to jeopardize safety or penalize the student because we cannot provide our services. So we're still learning. And if we need to make those adjustments, we will make those adjustments for our students and families.
So I think you've gotten to the gist of the next question with your answer just there. Tawana Harrison wants to know, while children are at school remotely, if the situation persists longer, will the school district help students who are struggling with some tutoring and working with kids who have special needs? But I think both of you have basically answered that question with your previous answer.
Yeah.
The answer to that is yes.
Yes.
That's what both of you guys have your situations have set up for. And this also gets back to what maybe you weren't necessarily prepared to be able to do back in spring when this was just dropped on everybody. You spent the summer preparing for this, and so we are where we are now. And I'll be honest with you, from our own experience, especially our 17-year-old who's a senior now, who's in all of the AP classes and everything else. The spring was rough. He's in all these difficult classes. This learning remotely is not his. He's much better in school than he is in online. He's doing so much better this fall, just in the few weeks that they've been back, than he was back in the spring. Part of it's because it's a hybrid situation, but the other part of it is because he learned from his mistakes in the spring, and so did the school district. So anyway, I digress. Shirley Ann Davis says kids and teachers need to be back in schools. Some homeschooled. She homeschooled before and knows how hard it is. So, okay. Great.
We agree.
We agree. We totally agree. Yes.
Everybody would love for that to be the case. Let's see what we can't do to figure out how to get rid of the virus, and then we'll all be happy about that. So, always good when I'm trying to monitor Facebook Live and I get phone calls at the same time. Yeah. Angela Abram, who commented earlier, had a question earlier, also wants to know what measures have to be put in place for mental health and support staff. So I have some information that I was going to read later on about that, but Adam H. has plenty of stuff. Angela, we'll get to that here in a little bit before we're done. We got about 15 minutes left in the show. Dr. Dixon, Ms. Steyer wants you to know that she's already sent that email that when you gave the email address earlier.
Thank you.
And Ms. Wilson, who asked the question earlier, wanted to say thank you, Dr. Dixon, for your answer.
Thank you.
So we've gotten through those, and let's get back to a couple of the other things here. So what do you guys think that the rest of the school year might look like for the students? Obviously, we can't predict what's gonna happen with the virus. Although I think people are starting to understand that this is a longer term thing. It's not like the virus is going anywhere yet. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about there being a vaccine, but even if there is a vaccine, I mean, I'm pretty sure that that while kids are going to be in both your school districts, kids are going to be back in the classroom at least part-time soon. I can't imagine, I could be wrong. I'm not Nostradamus. I can't predict the future, but I can't imagine the kids are going to get back into school full-time, maybe even before the end of the school year. Maybe it'll happen, but I can't imagine. But so what do you guys think that the rest of the school year is going to look like? A little bit of this is, kind of the new norm, but give some thoughts, I guess, on what you think.
In my opinion, I feel like I kind of agree with you. I don't think that anytime in the near future we're going to have 100% of our kids in on a daily basis. I would see staying in this hybrid situation for a while, given some of the things that we have coming. So, for example, flu season starts now. That's going to present some complications as we get through October, November, December. In best case scenario, a vaccine in February, March, maybe. And then the time to administer it, who's going to take it. By the time that happens, we're at the end of the school year. So we're planning right now to refine and perfect our hybrid model in hopes that things do dissipate quickly and we can go to a full 100% in buildings at some point during the school year.
Yeah, I agree. I think to add to that we're going to see more social emotional support added to our school platform. And I think because it's going to be embedded in our curriculum more so than we're going to be doing check-ins with our students. I think you're going to see the opening day, as Dr. Brown stated, when we think about what's happening in the hybrid classes and online classes, rather, we have these opening meetings. So the teacher opens up and they're saying, okay, Talisa, how was your day? Melvin, John, how are you doing today? You're talking about, here's your schedule for today. I don't know if all classes and all teachers were not doing that. It was more of, okay, you're in class, the bell rings, we've got bell to bell teaching, here's your work on the board, let's get at it. We have a different approach. And I think it's more of making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and our students and giving them time to reflect on whatever is happening the day before, the night before. And I think that piece is important. It does make me sad that we may not be together, primarily because I know the living circumstances of our students in Columbus City. And I know about the challenges for, health disparities and other disparities that our students face, and they need to be with us. And those challenges cannot be addressed if they're not with us, in the manner that we want them to be, if they're not with us. So hopefully that we are working on those other barriers so that when our students come back, we won't see these huge gaps of learning loss. And we won't see more students with more trauma because we were not able to intervene enough in this hybrid model or this virtual model, whatever model that that students have. And for Columbus particularly, you know, as I stated before, the data looks very different than my suburban colleagues. And that prevents yet another challenge. And so we have to be able to call it out and say, okay, we have some real inequities that are existing for our students. And if we want our students to come back, it's more than just our students coming back to a regular school day. It's making sure that our students come back equipped with everything that they need to accelerate from the time that they've been away from us. So Columbus City Schools, all our schools, they've been away from since March 6th, haven't been in the presence of their teachers. That is a lot. That's time with almost, how many months has that been? That's a huge gap for students that are coming from certain income brackets. And we recognize that. And it makes the challenge even more. But also, go back to your earlier question about the silver lining, it also allows us to dig deep and say, how can we utilize services of our partners very different with our schools? You know, our schools are no longer, I think, we can't operate separately anymore. And we are going to have to lean in on one another and take down these school walls and let others come in. You see other national models where you see partnerships that are working in our school buildings. You see all of these different models. I think we're going to have to lean on there because our students need something very different. And it depends on where you live too. I mean, our rural school, our rural colleagues, students, they don't have access to internet. So they're having to come to their buildings just to be able to connect, right?
Yeah.
So we all have different unique challenges. So, and so I hope that the message is, yes, it's not bringing them because we don't want them at home, but let's bring them back to something that's going to be better and address a lot of those needs that we know our students and families have.
It's important to note, given that situation, a lot certainly has happened since March 13th when we left. We are also in the midst of tackling social injustice issues, equity issues, not only within what we offer in terms of a school district, but even societally. So there are a lot of things that we've been tackling since this all started. It's easy to get focused on what COVID has made us do, but there's some other things, there's some other work that needs to be done as well. And we're certainly in the throes of getting that stuff done.
Yeah, good.
So I have a couple more questions. Well, one's a point. I think the other is a question. Claudia Grandos said they should get back to school full time, and parents who don't want to send their kids shouldn't have to. We'd all like to probably see that, but that's not where we are at the moment. But and then Ashley Steyer, who commented earlier, says that if children who have individualized education plans can't necessarily get the help that they need right now. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Well, for us, as we started for a while, our students with more severe special needs are actually in buildings now. They've been coming since the beginning of the school year, 4 days a week, and we'll continue that throughout the year. We think once we get an idea of what our buildings look like from an infrastructure standpoint, what classrooms look like, we'll be able to increase that. There may be situations where other students who have IEPs may be able to come in more than just 2 days a week when we get started. So I do think there'll be some iterations of how this transforms what we do and how it looks in schools each day as we go out throughout the school year. We're certainly sensitive to those needs and want to make sure those needs are met.
Yeah, and we're finalizing our plans for our special education students And so families should be hearing more within the next few weeks about how that will look for us.
All right. So I want to try to get some things in real quick here before we end our time. So if you'll bear with me. First, Jill Patrick Smith asks if they have considered letting kids whose parents had to go back to work have their kids go to school full time, and then let parents who are working from home do hybrid learning.
Well, I think there's something that needs to be considered as we go through this process. It's really easy to say, all kids should come back to school immediately and that's what should happen. But we also have to be sensitive to the adults who work in these buildings, because we have teachers, bus drivers, custodial staff, secretaries, cafeteria workers, people of that nature who also we have to protect. So I think those things have to be taken into consideration when we have those kinds of discussions. It's not simply as easy as just open the door, let the kids come in and they learn. There are people who actually do that work.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And then making sure we're following the guidance of our health officials too. That's very important. And I think as superintendents, I think that's where the lines seem to be blurred in the public eye, that we are making health decisions, health-related decisions, and that is beyond our expertise. We're just following the guidance of our health officials, knowing that we are making the final decisions based on our communities. But that guidance is very important as we make our decisions on how to operate our schools in our various districts.
So I am going to take just a couple seconds here to let our viewers know about, and some parents out there know about, some of the things that are available, that the county has that are available. While I'm doing that, if you two could think about some closing comments that you want to make before we're done. But let me take a moment to let parents know that Franklin County has made a lot of changes to help families cope with this pandemic. We have emergency grants and can help families connect to assistance. My staff will post some of these tools where on the in the comment section to let folks know where they may be able to get some help. There are many types of assistance available through Franklin County that the residents at the Department of Job and Family Services. So you can go to jfs.franklincountyohio.gov/COVID-19. You can also apply for benefits online at benefits.ohio.gov. Veterans may be able to seek additional help through the Veterans Benefits and our Veterans Service Commission at vets.franklincountyohio.gov. Benefitsohio.gov, veterans /referral.aspx. You can go, these will all be posted so that you can find them easily on Facebook Live. Senior residents can find a host of programs through the Franklin County Office on Aging at officeonaging.org/FCSO. Our partners at NMH, this is what I was talking about earlier, also have a host of ways to seek help. Mental health and addiction services issues. NetCare Access Emotional Support Crisis Line is 614-276-CARE or 2273. Nationwide Children's Hospital for any issues that kids might have under the age of 17 at 614-722-1800. They've been a great partner with us. Franklin County Suicide Prevention Hotline is 614-221-5445. St. Vincent's Family Center has a warm line at 614-354-6400. The Pierce Center has a warm line at 614-358-TALK or 8255. And then there's My Recovery Works through the Southeast Healthcare. They offer a peer support group, and you can go to myrecovery.org or myrecoveryworks.com to find the number for a recovery guide. So all of this you can find. It'll be listed on Facebook Live. So if any of those may be helpful, I also want to encourage folks, as I usually do, that the census is happening right now, and it's going to end at the end of September. www.my2020census.gov, or you can call the census at 800-923-8282. This is very important. It's very, very easy to do. And it's not just about our representation in Congress and the number of representatives that we have in Congress. It's also about a huge host of other very valuable, very important federal dollars and federal assistance that comes down to the state of Ohio, to Franklin County. Many of the things that I just mentioned get federal funds. And so please take a moment to fill out your census form. It's a very, very easy thing to do. Takes just a few minutes to get it done. So before we close out and before I just take a few minutes to close the segment, if the two of you have a few closing remarks that you'd like to make about the school year so far, the school year that we're going to embark on here, Dr. Dixon, what would you like to tell?
Thank you. I know people are probably tired of hearing this old cliche where people are saying we're all in this together, but we truly are. These are historic times, and I'm just excited that we're able to provide these services for our students. Our students need our schools, they need our teachers, they need the support that our schools provide, and we truly are in this together. And we have to continue to wrap ourselves around our schools and our school community. So thank you to the community for stepping up for us and my colleagues. Thank you for saying that, you know what, in order for us to get through this, we're going to get through this together. And I'm going to do something to help families and students in a way that I may not ever been able to do that before. Our theme this year, Columbus City Schools, is Rise Up. We say we're going to rise up together amidst these, even amidst these challenges that we are facing. So my message is we're not perfect. This is not what we want for our students and our families, but we're going to work and give 110% to our students and our families to make sure that their school experience this year is one that's good for them in every way that we possibly can make it. So those are my closing remarks.
I would echo much of that and also say, throughout this process, all of this, we're learning just like everybody else. It's not like we knew what the playbook was and we just failed to follow it. There is no playbook. Yeah. So I would encourage everybody to understand that no one in this process is comfortable. No one is content. Yeah. We're doing the absolute best we can, and we're thinking out of the box. We're pretending, actually, we're working as though there is no box in order to get things done. The work is very difficult, and it's different, and it's challenging us and pushing our capacity. And I always ask everyone to employ some patience, grace, and understanding as we move through this process. If we had all the answers at hand right now, then perhaps we'd be in a different situation. But those answers aren't available in many regards. And so I think it's important that we're patient with each other and we're patient with ourselves, and we take care of ourselves in that respect so that we can perform at the absolute optimal level for our kids in whatever venue they're in school, be it virtual, hybrid, all in, whatever the case may be. We want to do the best job possible to make that happen. And we need partnership and connection to make that go through successfully.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Before I close, one last comment I should make is that Ernest White wanted to say thanks to Mr. Brown for mentioning the social justice issues that have taken place since March, and I echo that. So in closing, I just wanted to thank our two guests. You two are both just fantastic gems in our community, and I am so honored to have had the two of you on today. You guys continue to amaze me, and I am very appreciative that you took the time today to spend with me and to spend with our guests. And so I thank you for that. You'd be hard pressed, those of you out there that have been paying attention today, to find two busier people in our community right now. So the fact that they were willing to take an hour of their time, a little more than an hour of their time to be with all of us is truly gracious of them and an honor. So we all know that they are, and all of their colleagues are working really hard right now to give our students the best possible learning experience that they can get. So I can't thank the two of you enough for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us today. You can find more about these two great school districts at ccsoh.us and at reyn.org. And we'll keep hosting these commissioners' conversations every week. The best way to learn about upcoming guests and topics is on our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Nextdoor. So please follow us there. And thanks everybody again for joining us. And as Dr. Dixon says, and we continue to say here each week, we are all in this together. Stay safe, everybody. And until next week, take care and be healthy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.